So today I'm going to be talking about rabbit pregnancy from the beginning rather than from the end. I shared with you before in my previous video what a rabbit does right before she delivers. So when she creates her nest, when she pulls her fur, and then when she delivers her babies, and what those babies look like after they've been delivered and before they've actually been fed. So a rabbit pregnancy is about 4 weeks long. So your doe can deliver anywhere between 28 and 35 days from when she has conceived. So you count the first day of a rabbit pregnancy from when you have those successful fall-offs of your buck. So there's heaps of videos on YouTube. I don't have any footage, but you can have a look at that, and they're really funny because they just will, like, once they're finished, they will literally fall off the doe onto the ground, and that's how you know you've got a successful fall off. A doe should have lifted. A receptive doe will, lift their tail a bit, and you try for 2 or 3 times. And then you can repeat that process. Say if you've started in the morning, you can repeat it again in the evening, because rabbits are induced ovulators. So induced ovulation is different from our ovulation as humans, because we have a menstrual cycle. Rabbits, in order to actually ovulate, need to have intercourse first. So when you have that first active intercourse, you might not catch those eggs that the doe does release, and you'll have to pair them again. But most of the time, if you get 2 or 3 fall-offs, you won't need that second time. That should be sufficient for you to have a successful pregnancy. So if you don't have a successful pregnancy, like, that can be unfortunate. Your doe may not have lifted, your buck might not, be fertile, your rabbits could be getting old. So if you have a look at, the ages of your rabbits, that could give you a little bit of an indication if you're not getting successful pregnancies. Does you get about 2 years out of before you start coming up to problems with not having litters or false pregnancies sometimes. With bucks, they go a little bit longer, so you can kind of get about up to 5 years out of a buck. Temperature does play a really big important part in rabbit intercourse and fertility, because a buck will experience temporary sterility at temperatures over about 30 degrees Celsius. So with nesting boxes, a lot of people who have cages say don't put your nesting box in too early, because your rabbit will either eat their hay that they should be nesting with because it's delicious, or they'll start to use that as a litter box. So rabbits are really clean animals. They like to have a particular spot that they like to defecate in. You'll find that they will use a particular spot in their cage if they're in a cage, or they should have a corner or a special place in their colony setting. If you have a doe that is in a smaller environment, a nesting box is quite, a nice place to go. So that's where they will be going. If they do that and you've popped your nesting box in there on about, day 27 or so of her pregnancy, you can take out that hay, replace it, and hopefully she won't do it again. But, it's a problem that you might encounter. So it is good to kind of check, because you do want it to be hygienic for when those babies first go in. In our setting, we have a little bit we have an open structure. We're going to be adjusting our structure to more of a colony, well, it's going to be more of a hybrid model. So we're going to have runs for each of the rabbits in an enclosed structure to protect them from mosquitoes. But anyway, our rabbit, in her enclosure, she was separated from the male and the other rabbits and given a hutch that she could prepare her nest in. So in our experience, she started preparing that nest about a week before she was actually due to deliver, and then revisited it about 48 hours beforehand and started doing those final touches. She picked the furthest corner from the entrance in the darkest spot, and that's natural. They want their babies to be in the safest spot. She was really relaxed pretty much the whole time. She went about it methodically. There was a sense of urgency as she was leading up to her delivery, because they're pure instinct at that point, but the whole thing went really, really smoothly. And it could be something to consider, just giving those rabbits a little bit more space, because I have personally found that they are less stressed, they perform better with their, in harmony with their natural instincts. But, that's not obviously going to be for everyone, but that's just how I personally like to run things. For palpating does, you can palpate a doe, or some people find successfully they can palpate does from about the second week. Some people say don't palpate your does later into their pregnancies because or not at all, because you might injure those babies. I've palpated my own abdomen when I've been pregnant, so I've genuinely felt like I wasn't going to damage any of those babies, and at 2 weeks I couldn't feel anything. I was just like, it feels like a smooshiness. Is that an organ? I don't know. I didn't really want to press, super hard, but I couldn't feel anything at 2 weeks. At 3 weeks, when I tried again, I didn't really have to press anywhere near to the kind of depth. Those babies grow really rapidly, and I could actually feel them kick back and move inside her abdomen. So I knew definitely at that point she was pregnant. You do feel like, at that size, I guess they probably would have been about the size of a small apricot, but you don't even really have to press hard. You just press your hand on their abdomen and you can feel kickbacks like against it like you would with a human pregnancy, which is pretty cool. If your doe is a highly strung out doe, you don't palpate her all the time. She is going to hate it. Even, a really affectionate, well-temperamented doe is not going to like that you're palpating her when she is pregnant because their behaviors change. It's hormonal. It usually will be throughout the course of the pregnancy, through lactating, and then when she's weaned her babies and she doesn't have them around anymore, she'll go back to her normal self. If you're breeding really hard and close together, you're going to have cranky does all of the time, and that's just how it is, unfortunately. It's just, a natural part of being pregnant is being a bit cranky. So rabbit pregnancy isn't really all that difficult. It's pair your doe and your buck together, give her a nice, safe, clean nesting place to have her babies, and then you feed her like maybe a little bit more than normal, and then as her babies are delivered and they're starting to grow, especially if she has a larger litter, she will be ravenous all the time. So just feed her, as needed. Rabbit pregnancy is really simple. They take care of themselves. They clean up after themselves when they kindle and deliver. You may find that there's a little bit of retained products in the nest and you just remove those, but from start to finish, rabbit pregnancy is really, really easy. Caring for newborns, they don't need any care. It's good to, from you at least, or your intervention, it's good to check to make sure that, they're all still alive. So go in there, count your babies, count them, and check on them, and, touch them for at least the first 2 weeks, because in that first 2 weeks is when you're going to probably lose kits, if you're going to lose any. They may, get out of the nest. We had one baby, it had probably latched on and fed, and the mum left her hutch and went out into her run, and then in the morning we found that baby in the enclosure. It had burrowed itself down into a little bit of hay. It was a little bit cold. We warmed it up. It wasn't anywhere close to death or anything, but if it hadn't had any fur on it already, like its fur had come in, it probably would have died. So we were lucky that we're relatively mild weather now. If it had been 2 months ago or something, it would have been quite cold. It probably would have died. You don't want dead babies in your nesting box because, for obvious reasons, bacteria, smell, it doesn't create a very hygienic environment. You're going to get pests and parasites come in, and potentially, is going to kill, result in disease in your nesting box, and that's definitely not what you want.